Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We'll give just another minute or two to let some more people join, and then we will get started. All right, well, I will go ahead and kick things off. My name is Hollis Klinkenbeard, and I work with the Converged user group. Thank you for joining us for this week's Converged Community Hour. The purpose of these Community Hour series are to virtually connect with all Converged user group members. They are typically held every other Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern. However, we have had to make some slight adjustments just due to the summer and other individual plans. But be sure to share any future topic ideas with our team. We discuss a variety of topics based on member interest through these community hours. If you've missed any of the past few, they are all posted on our website under the resources page, so you can access those recordings. If this is your first time joining us for the Converged Community Hour, or if you are not familiar with the Converged user group, we are a customer-led community connecting members exploring Dell converged and hyper-converged solutions to share ideas, best practices, and experiences. For today's webcast, please use the Q&A function for any questions and the chat function for discussion with your peers. Our speakers will respond to questions during or at the end of today's discussion. As mentioned previously, your feedback really helps us to plan any future sessions, so please participate in any surveys and polls. We will be sending out a poll at the end of the webcast, as well as including a survey in the chat towards the end of the hour as well. All survey participants will be entered into a drawing and with the chance to win some great prizes. So with that, I will pass it over to David Giesica.
Fantastic, and thank you, Hollis. Hollis, can you do, perfect, thank you, that's what I was looking for. All right, real quick, just some technical questions and housekeeping here. Speaker panel, I know we checked beforehand, but give me a thumbs up if you can hear me, please. All right, awesome, fantastic. Folks, thank you very much for attending. I'm excited to get back to the community hour. We are, I guess, on summer hours, but we've got a fantastic episode for you today. My name is David Giesica. I run the Converged User Group program for Dell Technologies, and I'm also a non-voting Converged User Group board member. As Hollis mentioned, this is a customer-led organization, and we do our best to maintain alignment, and this is a fantastic, fun thing. I'm glad to see so many folks out there. As usual on the Community Hour, I'm joined by Converged User Group President Jonathan Toulon, who's also Senior Director, Infrastructure, Engineering, and Operations at INCOM. JT, thanks for joining. And we are joined by two very special guests today for a fantastic converged infrastructure conversation. Scott Redfern, Senior Director, CI and OpenHCI, Platform Architecture and Engineering at Dell Technologies, and Converged User Group Board Member Suzanne Pickett, who graces us again with attendance. Thank you, Suzanne, and thank you, Scott. So Hollis, you can probably take down the slide now, folks. We had that there just for we may get into some future forward-looking discussion, so we need to just present that for you. We are going to get rolling and have a great CI conversation for you. Just before we get started, I'll just remind you, please, we'd love to hear your questions and comments, so use the chat and the Q&A function as Hollis mentioned. Scott, how you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, and thanks Dave and JT and Suzanne and Hollis for having me here. I love coming and joining in with the user group. Many times I've done it in person when we're at Dell Technologies World. Now we're virtual.
We love to have you on, Scott. It's always awesome, and you know, you're a longtime supporter and friend, so thank you for taking the time. A lot of stuff happening in CI recently. So I'd like to start off with just let us know what's happened, what do members really need to know, and where are we going?
Yeah, that's right. We've been really busy this year, and we're only halfway through the year. So let me first talk to you about some of the more recent announcements that we've had. And most of it's going to be around VxBlock because that's what everyone knows, but I'll add in a couple of discussions here and there around PowerOne, because PowerOne is one of the other products within our portfolio that I'm responsible for. So let's go through a couple of them. In June and July, the July one is going to be coming up over the weekend or early next week, so you may not have heard them yet. But June, July, we announced a number of additions to our data protection portfolios. So we added in the PowerProtect data manager and the features around that, as well as the X.400, that's my networking days, the X400 appliance. And we added in the newest versions of the data domain products as well, the 6400, the 6900, and the 9900 appliances. The next item that we've just released and is going to be added in to our shipping as soon as we can slipstream it into our manufacturing is our new IPI cabinet. So everyone's familiar with our cabinets and the additional work that we put into them in terms of the engineering. The new IPI cabinet has new branding around it that we've been working on for all of our new products. And at the same time, it has new PDUs in it that are a smaller form factor, so it's easier for us to do from a maintenance perspective, but it's actually got denser port layouts in them. So it's a better power distribution unit, and it also has what used to be our separate IPI appliance built into the PDU so that we don't have that 0U appliance where if we have a problem with it, it's tough for us to maintain. So it's added to our support and our capabilities. And the cabinet is certified for higher load ratings. And we've added in a number of things. So the handle within it, we've added a lot of new intelligence into the handle rather than having some of those controls across the face of the door. They're built into the new handle that you'll see. There's a cool video out there. We thought about playing it here, but it's a bit long, but there's a video you can see to learn about the new features there. The big announcement that we have that's coming up this coming week, or we're launching it, it's going to be quiet availability, but available to everyone from a quoting and a shipping perspective, is we're adding PowerStore T into the capabilities for our VxBlock 1000. We also had this quarter, within the last few weeks, is the next update for PowerOne. So PowerOne release 1.2 added Unity XT in from a storage perspective. So PowerOne initially with its release supported the PowerMax arrays. Now it supports the Unity XT. And as we move into what's coming in the second half of the year, we're moving as we can into more coordinated releases for our CI products. So our big announcement in the second half of the year around PowerStore T, when we do the full marketing, will be that coordinated release of both PowerStore T on Block as well as PowerStore T on PowerOne. And that's going to be a theme that we'll be carrying forwards in terms of working joint development between both of my engineering teams on many new features. In the second half of the year, we do have a number of Cisco updates that are coming. We're adding in the 108 port fabric fabric interconnect on the VxBlock 1000, the 64108, as well as some updates on the denser MDS fabric switches, the 9700s with the new 64 gig capable SOUP and the new fab cards that we're going to add in there. And we'll have some more minor Isilon updates that'll have some of the new code that allow us to support more nodes, as well as some of the newer back-end switches for that. Now, something that we've been working on the whole year in terms of an engineering development effort is our move towards cloud enablement for the second half of the year. So what you're going to be seeing starting early in the second half and rolling through the second half of the year is what we're doing from a block strategy perspective to enable a move towards the cloud. The first thing you'll see is a release of a new AMP. So we had the AMP Central that we released a number of months ago. You're going to see the AMP Central vSAN that will be released. So instead of having a small Unity array built into it, it's going to be using vSAN storage. And that sets us up, as well as our support for vSphere 7 and NSX-T, for the middle of the second half of the year, where we're going to be announcing our integration with VMware Cloud Foundation 4. So that vSAN AMP is what gets us compatible with the workload domain, the management domain. vSphere 7 and NSX-T across the board helps us get to a lot of the other standards that we need in order to embrace that adoption of VMware Cloud Foundation for those customers who are interested in moving more towards that hybrid cloud capability.
That's a lot going on, Scott. Thanks for taking
It's been a busy first half of the year.
Yeah. So some great points, great things coming up. You know, I'd like to, our members typically own CI and HCI already, right? And I think JT, you might have taken delivery of some VxBlock 1000s in the past 6 months maybe, or certainly if you haven't, it's nearby. But does that mean someone like JT who just got a VxBlock 1000, will they be able, what you just told us could they quickly and easily kind of adopt? And, you know, if someone has a VxBlock 1000 with a different AMP, but they want to go to VCF, will they be able to make as quick, you know, what kind of brownfield adjustments can they make to take advantage of these things? And sure, JT, please jump in. Suzanne as well.
In terms of the compatibility, so any one of those announcements are designed towards the VxBlock 1000. So any one of those can be added to the VxBlock 1000. You can certainly add additional storage arrays on to be able to add the PowerStore array in, add additional capabilities there. We will be, so the first release of our vSphere 7 and NSX-T are greenfield, as we always do, and then we have a fast follow with the brownfield release as well. Now, a number of the other things, when we talk about data protection, those features are certainly capable for use in the VxBlock 1000, but we're also making those available for customers who have, say, VxBlock 350s or 540s or 740s. So those go further back into our product portfolio. Same thing with vSphere 7 and NSX-T, the software types of updates. And our AMP Central can certainly be used to upgrade for multi-system management for our customers that have many different generations of vBlocks and VxBlocks out there. If someone wants to move to VCF, the definition for the management domain in VCF is a vSAN-based management appliance. So customers looking to do that would migrate from any one of their current AMPs, whether it be an AMP3S or an AMP Central, into the vSAN-based AMP, because that's how VMware requires that management domain to be configured.
Fantastic. JT and Suzanne, I'd ask you guys, you know, what do you think hearing all that stuff? JT, do you want to start, and then we'll...
Dave, you know, it's another day in the neighborhood for me, so I'm well abreast of all of the new features within the 1000. So we do have a 1000 that will be hitting our data center floor very shortly.
Awesome.
So we do look forward to seeing the advantages of having the 1000 versus the 540s and the 740s. So, I mean, I don't have a lot, Dave. Again, for me, this is my questions are different than the ones that other customers would probably ask, just due to the nature that I've been involved in Converged for almost 5 years now. So.
Yeah, that's true. Suzanne, you've got, you're very well versed in CI. How do you react to some of these things that Scott's sharing?
You know, I love hearing that the stuff that was on the roadmap a while ago is now coming to fruition, more around the perpetual storage and the supportability, just the entire engineered solution being turnkey, and the more stack on or modular approach to block. I think it's really making headway, and it allows for much more easier adoption for those who may have been looking at it a little bit more in the past as kind of one and done. So I think these are great announcements. Really looking forward to seeing them in action.
And one of the things you may notice in here is, for us, getting to vSphere 7, we were this close to being able to get vSphere 7 in within the same calendar quarter as when it went GA from VMware. And that was our goal. We missed it by a bit because I think we're going to be in early August by the time we finish the final parts of the certification. But our goal has been to bring that down, because I'm sure anyone who's been around for a while has noticed that it's taken us a good amount of time in all of the triangulation that we do with the support matrices to get new vSphere releases in. And by adopting many of the standards and embracing and working more with the VCF standards, we're looking to be within a quarter in most times of the new updates and when we're going to be embracing them and releasing them.
Yeah, and it's just a huge advancement in for both the converged and the hyper-converged to be able to kind of integrate and adopt and adapt that quickly to some of the other changes that are going on. So kudos to the product team. It's great announcements.
Yeah, there's neat stuff there. I'm very attentive to the time right now because I know JT has a hard stop at the bottom of the hour. That doesn't mean we can't continue, but I want to get JT to be able to weigh in. We had a fantastic question come into the Q&A at the very beginning. It's not a CI related question, but they're starting their HCI journey. So I'd like to pivot and address this question. This comes from Murray Platts. We are starting our HCI journey, working with a vendor. One of the items is to determine applications that are not HCI friendly. Can you give the criteria of an HCI friendly workload or the opposite? And to this, I'd also add Suzanne and JT and Scott, of course. How should somebody, or what's some best practices that you can share? How should they think about where to place the workload and what type of infrastructure to place that on? You know, is it, I'll just say, you know, we've been preaching for a while now that it's an and conversation, it's not an or conversation, and this comes down to the workload assessment. So please share what you can to help Murray out here.
Yeah, so I'll go first, just based off of experience. So from a Converge perspective, I think Converge fits more of the monolithic legacy type of applications. Not to say you can't modernize them and put them on there as well, but I think that's where HCI tends to come into play, is where your modernized apps kind of fit the mold of HCI because they don't require as much compute and or storage. And implementing that with the HCI platform allows a lot more flexibility and agility just across your entire environment. I know that for a fact. So we utilize HCI for a lot of our modernized applications, and then we utilize Converge for more of the monolith, beefy ones that require like a VMAX or like a mid-range, like an X2 or something of the sort to support it.
Suzanne, you want to share your experience and thoughts?
Sure. I think in the beginning, There was a lot of thought put to what kind of workloads could run or where they should run. But I think with a lot of the advancements and our ability to focus more compute focused modes, more storage focused modes, or nodes, if you will, that there really isn't any workload that you can't run on either HCI or converged or both. I would say, JT, my experience has been similar, where we're seeing a little bit more focus on the heavier lifting, the heavier apps, or even the apps that seem to require a little bit more of a conservative approach in terms of how fast you're making changes or how many updates you're going to be making to the environment. So think of it as your critical workloads, the ones that require the most amount of change control that you're going. And then as you're moving toward a more modern infrastructure, architecture, data center, and even methodologies of how you deploy. You deploy faster, you fail faster, but you're building in the resiliency into the application layer instead of the infrastructure layer. That's where HCI really can shine. But you can also, again, you can configure your HCI nodes to fit the workload that you have. So it's no longer, well, can I make this workload fit on HCI or CI, but what's best for you? And I think that comes down to where it's running, how often you're iterating on the application and the product, and how fast you're scaling it. I think those are really big considerations.
Yeah, I think those are both great. Those are both great points in terms of how they fit, and having development teams that do both HCI and CI, because I've got the Microsoft Azure Stack appliances in my team, as well as XC. And the CI, there's most applications will run, most workloads will run in either environment. And as you said, Suzanne, every day, more of them run and run well in any one of the environments. So that's getting to make it easier. And JT, as you said, where the applications have needs for more of those enterprise services today, you're going to tend to, or non-uniform types of resource requirements, we still tend to gravitate towards those CI environments. And what we see is, as you said, Dave, is that and environment. Many of our biggest accounts who are running vScale data center fabrics have a combination of both VxBlocks, VxRails, and PowerFlex used to be VxRackFlex appliances, all merged into the same environment to hit different sweet spots when they have that many different workloads and that big of a requirement. So they try to put the applications into sweet spots where they get the best bang for their money as well. Because there are some applications that you need to be able to grow quickly and easily, and that's certainly going to come from an appliance at a time. So all of them make sense, and in big environments, you'll be best served by having a combination of them.
Thanks, Scott. And I think this kind of helps pivot into the next question of, if you're beginning your HCI journey, JT, Suzanne, and Scott, it's not just the technology, it's the teams, it's the people. What are some best practices to kind of identify pivoting folks, or maybe pivoting is the wrong word, but transitioning folks from perhaps a siloed way of being managed into how should they think about managing the infrastructure for HCI? Does that look different than managing infrastructure for CI? What are best practices and lessons learned you can share so they can quickly take most advantage of what CI and HCI offers over the legacy siloed way of operating?
I think we're going to need another hour on that one, David.
Right.
It's a really good question.
Well, we've got a 10th of an hour.
I think the short answer is, really in the CI space, the turnkey engineered solution really allows you to get going very quickly with robust infrastructure, and then enables your people, your staff, or yourself to maybe focus on more value-added activities. So you might want to work on automating more of your legacy or your greenfield practices. And so not having to worry so much about about the infrastructure will enable you and allow you to do that. And I think that that's the biggest value add, especially in the HCI space. You know, everyone's focused on automation or being more agile or lean. And one of the things that you can really focus on with either environment, but I know a lot of people are using HCI for it, is that automated stack. And that kind of goes back to where your workloads go and how they go, how fast you're iterating, and how you're building. So your infrastructure as a service, containers as a service, functions as a service. You really kind of, you create that more software-defined approach. And again, enabling your people to focus on those activities versus worrying about racking, stacking, cabling, and you know, the basic configurations that are needed to certify and validate your infrastructure. My 2 cents.
Well, you know, this is always my favorite question, because I've actually experienced it and I have implemented it. The hardest part is not necessarily the hardest part, but you got to have people that are open-minded. Because when you work in a silo organization for so long, you're used to doing something a specific way. But now you're asking somebody who has been a Linux engineer to also know virtualization, to also know UCS, to also know storage. That's a big ass, or 9K, or your fabric interconnect. You know, it's like a million components in the VxBlock. So you have to level set the expectations. I think a lot of people, you want to go in and you want to like learn all of this, and then you think it'll be received very well. But what I learned is it actually scares a lot of people. So you got to be mindful of, all right, so let's create a curriculum that allows you to go from being a specific Linux engineer or Windows engineer to an infrastructure engineer, and now you're managing an entire stack. And then you get to out of the operations focus and more on the engineering focus towards what Suzanne was saying is, how do I optimize? How do I get more efficient at delivering my services to my end users? And that's where you go more automation and just containers as a service, everything as a service, because now you're comfortable with understanding what it means to maintain converged or hyper-converged infrastructure.
And one of the ways that I'm seeing that done, and one of the ways that we're working on doing that inside Dell, is to look at infrastructure in terms of products. And by that I don't mean the VxBlock 1000 or the VxRail. Well, what I do mean by that is, what is the thing that our customers are consuming? Is it software-defined storage? And we create a product team around that. And that product team might be balanced. It might not just have storage engineers. It might have some developers or networking, or even some compute people making up that product team. So we are blending and graying out the areas of siloed responsibility to deliver the service. And that, in you know, a good example of that would be software-defined storage, or maybe it's VM as a service or container as a service. So rethinking how we align and silo our infrastructure teams to blend together those responsibilities and that subject matter expertise, that's really key right now.
And even in my engineering organizations, we see the same challenges. So we have been siloed in the past. We have a team working on Azure Stack. We have a team working on XC. We have a team working on Power One or VxBlock. But the thing about HCI is it's really become, the automation in HCI has really become table stakes in terms of expectations for any IT organization on how we're going to manage infrastructure. So by blending those teams and bringing those teams together, we're looking at how we can bring those paradigms that everyone's gotten used to in HCI over to CI. And that's where you see within VxBlock Central our advanced orchestration capabilities, where we've now brought in 50 different orchestration routines, or somewhere around 50, that we can help simplify the day-to-day tasks that people have to go through. And we're continuing to look at how we can even build on that with all of the VMware Cloud Foundation and integrating with SDDC Manager to continue to give that same automated and orchestrated feel to a CI environment that everyone's become used to in the HCI environment.
Yeah, and it's not reinventing the wheel every time you need to write code or automate something, and it's been validated. So it's validated design, it's engineered design, so you know it's good. and you know you can trust it, and that's really what it comes down to.
Thanks, Suzanne and Scott. JT, it's the bottom of the hour. I believe you have another commitment. I want to honor that. Thank you for your time. Any parting words for folks?
Yeah, I'll stay because my meeting got moved. So
awesome. All right.
Which
That's
I told you would
Like
happen,
that.
Dave, but of course it always happens last minute. So
Oh, fantastic.
Flexibility
All right,
is
so
fun.
right.
Exactly.
I'm happy for you,
Oh.
JP.
Me too.
Good. Okay. So look, what I want to extend this a little bit further, because I think in the past when people were talking about HCI, they were talking about hiring a bunch of devs to reprogram their monolithic architecture for cloud-based architecture, or the software. So hey, let's just run all this stuff on HCI, all the non-native applications. We'll just have someone rewrite those applications to be native. Does that make a lot of sense?
Yeah. I have my thoughts on that. I'll let someone else go first if they like.
Oh no, that's all you, Suzanne.
Oh, thanks. I think that's a very traditional approach, and it's not a bad approach, right? We do need to rewrite our apps to be more cloud native. We need to containerize if we can, or create that function service container, whatever it is we need to do. We need to make these things less big, make them a little more manageable and consumable, and then we can reuse parts of them to be consumed with other apps. A good example of that is a database service. Do we need to recreate the database service every time? Probably not. So rewriting the monolithic apps is a great idea, but the reality is that's very hard. And it's hard for various reasons. It could be culture, could be technology, could be budget, it could be COVID. We don't know. And I'll probably get blocked for saying the COVID word, but I think what it comes down to is making sure that as you're bringing in new functionality, new capability, that it is designed correctly for the future. You can't future-proof, but you can start looking at where you want to be in 2, 3, 4 years. And then taking the opportunity as you work through some of your legacy applications, and as they're life cycling out, or you're going through attrition, or you need to deliver new capability, take advantage of that opportunity and either rewrite, forklift, and or bring in the capabilities that you need to do to run kind of in this new world, right? This new more agile world that we've got, more cloud friendly world. So that's my 2 cents. I think it's great to say rewrite all your apps. I think the reality is that's a little more difficult, and we've got in some cases, thousands of enterprise applications that we're working through. Just start where you can. And, the great thing is with CI and HCI, our worlds can talk to each other. And so you don't have to be that one or the other.
I also think it depends, right? Everybody always wants to do the grandest, the thing that is just the keyword, the trend, oh, cloud or this or that, without a true understanding of the environment. I get it. We all want what we believe is best, but in the reality of things, you're not going to redesign a monolithic application that has millions of lines of code. That just doesn't make sense. If anything, you're going to create a new app that uses the same functionality, but in a modernized format. So now I can have it on cloud and on-prem if I want the hybrid model. I think a lot of times everybody just wants that. I want to be able to build immediately. So, okay, so why not try to build a private cloud where you can kind of create that type of functionality? And then with the ability to do that, then you have that comfort level of knowing what it creates for you to be able to put it on a cloud as well. But expectations are 100 times bigger than reality, just to be honest. And we tend to hold on to a presentation that somebody presents on what they believe is best versus what is factual. Feelings are not facts. Just because you feel like it's best doesn't mean that it'll actually happen. And I understand it 100% because I'm a living individual of seeing how difficult it is to create anything within a company when you have competing priorities and a lean team to operate it. So
Yep.
that's just my 2 cents.
And I think too, it's really about, the bulk of your investments to start moving toward more modern infrastructure and tools and ways to manage and build and deploy. But at the same time, JT and I, we've supported and operated really large shops. You can't ignore your brownfield environment. You can't. And you can't starve it either. You still need to support it through its life cycle. So there's a balancing act there, especially with tighter budgets and leaner teams around what you're doing. But if you don't get started today, where are you going to be in a couple of years? So the point is, you've got to start.
Yep.
Scott, anything to add to that?
JT and Suzanne did a great job of responding to that one.
Go for hours on that. Hours. I think JT and I have actually.
Yes.
Might have been over a beer, but yeah, we've talked about that.
Absolutely.
So I can't wait until we can have an in-person user group meeting like we used to, because these are the great conversations that often took place in the networking after the formal presentation. We're working hard to figure out how we can deliver remote networking for members. We're coming up with ideas, but it's difficult when you're socially isolated or physically isolated. You don't have to be socially isolated. Scott, I have a question in the chat, which I think is fantastic and designed for you. Do you want to take that? It looks like someone's got an older
from Terry.
40. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's a couple of different parts to that. So if we're talking about what help or what information might you need to look at a brownfield upgrade to vSphere 7 on older systems, the best thing to do would be to work with your account team, because many of the systems, including your AMP that you may have, may be compatible. So long as you're going to vSphere 7 and you're not rolling in VCF with it, may very well be compatible. So they'll be able to help you understand, do you have the resources that you need on your existing AMP to be able to migrate to vSphere 7? And because vSphere 7 supports certain hardware components, you will also want to look and see, and we'll provide the information through our RCMs, but are there any components that you may have in an aging system? And it would tend to be older UCS blades, but might there be some components that wouldn't be supported when you go to vSphere 7. So from that perspective, the account team can help you understand that. And if you're looking to move to newer technology, say like from a system 340 or even from say a 350 or a 540 or 740, we're actually in August, you'll start hearing more about this, of a program that's going on within our organization of being able to help customers go from existing environments, existing VxBlock environments to the perpetual architecture in a VxBlock 1000, so that you can move to a 1000 and move over a number of the expensive components that you might have in one of your other systems to be able to preserve the asset life that you have in that. And once you're in the VxBlock 1000, the great thing about that with the perpetual architecture is you continue to use assets in there until their useful life is done, as you can add in new ones. So PowerStore T is obviously the next one, and who knows what the next either new UCS compute component or storage component, storage array generation will be, but you add new ones, and when the old ones are done, you can just retire those and you continue to green that architecture or keep it perpetual moving forwards. Where in the challenge with just the older systems is we always had an anchor technology in each one of them. VxBlock 740, the anchor technology was the VMAX in there. VxBlock 350 was the Unity array that was in there. In the VxBlock 1000, we intentionally have no anchor technology so that you can continue to upgrade and retire components so that you're not forced to go through those monolithic upgrades that in any IT organization are so painful.
And Scott, in there you mentioned RCM, and I think you might have also mentioned multi-system management. So what would some of the benefits be trying to leverage what's available in the 340 to make the adaptation and transition to the perpetual architecture? Would that facilitate RCM upgrades? Would that facilitate multi-system management? How should someone think about that versus, well, maybe I just want to keep that there, let it run until it's done, but purchase a new 1000?
Sure, from a multi-system management perspective, you can, if you've got numerous older VxBlock systems in your environment or prior generations, I don't necessarily want to say older. I'm old. VxBlocks aren't that old comparatively. With the AMP Central systems, AMP Central Unity, upcoming AMP Central vSAN, you can manage multiple systems, and it's not just for new VxBlock 1000s. It's for your whole environment out there. So you can start consolidating from a management perspective. If you've got new VxBlock 1000s, great. If you've got prior generations, you can manage all of them from that one environment. Now, when you pull that together with what's been starting to roll out, which is VxBlock Central, and more importantly, the VxBlock Central Cloud release, which we're moving through over, we started in this half of the year, we're going to be moving further into it in the second half of the year, where we are now taking the management and reporting part of VxBlock Central and moving it into Cloud IQ, which is fantastic because you've now got a cloud portal to do that. And once we have it in a place where we can do more of those analytics and the capabilities in the back with Cloud IQ, what we called RCM in the past, we're looking at in the future as lifecycle management or LCM. There's going to be a lot more new capabilities there, where in the past it was, you've got this large RCM bundle that you need to apply. And we're going to give the options of more modular RCM updates. So for customers who need to get to a single part of that update sooner, we'll allow that. And over time, the customer can get to that new full certified bundle, but we have verified modules that you can get to. And this interface would tell you, if you just want to go to vSphere 7, you can pick in this environment, say, I want to take this environment to vSphere 7. Now, are there any other pieces of software in the sphere of my system that will be required to be updated just to be compatible with vSphere 7? Anything else? Leave it out, but it'll tell you and give you that feedback of, what do you need? If I just need to go to the latest release of the code on PowerMax, it'll tell you too, what else might you need to update to get to that. So it helps you and gives you either a modular upgrade plan or a more robust upgrade plan. And as we get a little further down the road, the intention is first to give you order of operations or guided path updates specifically for that RCM release. And as we continue on, you'll be able to choose, say, for an option of updating the software in your switches. Behind that will be an option that you can launch that will execute one of those workflows that we're building locally in VxBlock Central to do the actual software update behind that, to update your switches, or maybe for the UCS blades or different things like that. So we'll add in automation strategically in the places that our customers and our services teams are telling us are either the most problematic or just the most time consuming in order to do in terms of updates. So that software plus the AMP will help even existing customers be able to simplify what they're doing today, because I admit, I love the concept of the RCM. Getting from one RCM to the next version of the RCM, I don't think anyone would say that you love it. It's something that we all need to do, but we need to make it easier.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. It's you know, we have that conversation almost every Converged user group meeting, one way or the other. It is something that is hugely beneficial, but it's also a behemoth. And JT, I think JT and I have had conversations. It's kind of like what I've heard about painting the Golden Gate Bridge. You start at one end, you get to the other end, and then it's time to turn around, and do it all over again. If you want good RCM hygiene. And I'll just highlight and let JT and Suzanne react to one of the big things that keeps coming out of Converge user group meetings when we have folks, there's a group of folks who are pretty successful with their RCM upgrades. And then there's folks who have disastrous RCM upgrades. But the difference there is the best practice of maintaining good RCM hygiene. And I think that's kind of something that's rang clear over the years. Even though it might not be something you enjoy doing, it is something that you should probably do at least once a year. JT, would you say?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would do it more if I could. It's just when your environment is really big and your team is lean and your environment is designed to support monoliths, there's things within your environment where you just can't do an RCM upgrade the way you really want to. I would love to just hit go and be done immediately, but like I said, when you have monolith applications, it is a lot more planned. Like we planned for 7 months this year for our RCMs. We've done 2 out of 5, and they've been very successful. So I'm going to knock on wood, and hopefully we can continue that cycle. And I think it's just the due diligence of understanding the opportunities from the last few times doing them. So.
Suzanne, you've had a few, right?
Yeah, just a few. I think it would be great if you can keep current, but obviously keeping us close to current is the most critical aspect of that. Because if you get too far away from the release cycles, then you could find yourself in a situation that may become problematic or challenging. So, especially like in JT's world where the buy-in from the business and the buy-in for the change and compliance and controls and everything that has to go into that, the planning is really required. So at a minimum a year, if you can do it more often, highly recommend that. And staying, if you can, within one of current, because that's your best bet for having that more seamless upgrade path. So love hearing about the new modular approach to the updates. Especially if our partners at VMware, they've released something in vSphere and we really want it, right? We really need it. What do we need to do to get there? What's the minimal viable thing that we need to do to get there? And so having that capability, I think is just super critical. Again, ease of adoption, just make it easy.
That's the goal.
Scott, yeah, and thanks for your team listening, Scott, and working really hard to keep delivering on that.
Yeah, I love the feedback. Keep giving us feedback because that gives us new things to work on and better ways to improve the product.
Yeah, and that's a great point. This is it's not just feedback from the board for members listening. We are an avenue to distill your voice and deliver your voice to folks like Scott and other folks at Dell Technologies to help address challenges or any issues that you have or questions or requests. The Converge user group, that's one of the goals. So please do take us up on that. You can just shoot an email to info@convergeusergroup.com or memberservices@convergeusergroup.com or reach out through the website. There's all sorts of ways. We are now at about 10 minutes to the hour. And I know we call it the community hour, but I always like to give folks a little bit of extra time back. It's been a fantastic conversation. Thank you very much, Suzanne and Scott, for joining, and JT as always. We've got a minute or two that we could do a final wrap up. If there's anything that we haven't addressed that you want to see or you want to speak to, please, it's open forum now. Any final words, Scott?
No, just thanks for the opportunity for coming. I love having the opportunity to come and speak with everyone and hear from everyone. So my biggest suggestion here is if there's things that you either heard that you don't like or other things that you'd like to see, let us know. The things that you don't like are important or more important than what you do like, because that's what helps us continue to improve. So continue to funnel that up through. I want to hear your feedback, and we're looking to keep making Block and Power One and all the products better based on your feedback.
Thank you, Scott. Suzanne, thank you. JT, closing words from the president.
Thank you, Scott, for coming on. This was great information. I'm super excited to hear about RCMs going to cloud. That should be interesting. Suzanne, always a pleasure. Hope you are doing well.
You too.
And yeah, Dave, just thank you for being the moderator, per usual.
It's always fun. It's always a blast. I really love these conversations. I love to get, hear more from the customer members, the partner members, the employee members. So thanks all for attending. Hollis, are you out there?
Yes, I am here.
I will hand it to you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it was great to have you all on. We really appreciate your time. Be on the lookout for any upcoming Converged community hours, as well as different events that we will be hosting virtually. And again, the survey link is in the chat. But thank you, and we hope that you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Thanks all.
Bye.